It's finally Cardano's turn to shine. We've got Charles Hoskinson breaking down his three biggest priorities for the ecosystem for the year of 2025. As a part of today's video, I want to dive into the deeper details of each of those items and exactly what we can expect for this new year. What's up, Ida Gang? Welcome into Dapp Central, your home for everything blockchain and crypto. As a part of today's video, massive news coming in here from Charles Hoskinson pertaining to what exactly he sees being the vision, or at least the key priorities to bring Cardano to the masses for the year of 2025. And so we're going to dive into three key pieces or three key points that he's made very clear, which again should hopefully be taking Cardano to the next level. Now I'm going to dive into some of the nuance there and then also potentially raise some concerns, right? As well as questions to you as to what you think is the next big thing that we need to prioritize as the Cardano community moving forward. Now, before we go any further, if it's your first time stopping by the channel, my goal is to help you find your footing here within the Cardano and Bitcoin spaces. As always, if you appreciate the content, please smash that thumbs up. If you want more, consider subscribing. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave those down below. Now, if you aren't aware and if you want to take your support for the channel even further, consider delegating with either of the two Dapp Central stake pools, both sharing the ticker DAPP. Now, the newest pool has just broken over 1 million ADA in terms of delegation. I want to just thank the entire community here for helping me to be able to realize, right, my dream, which is to go full time here in this particular space. So without any further ado, let's dive right on in here and take a look at exactly what Charles has mentioned. And so it states here that now that we have governance moving along quite well, this year in 2025, I'm going to focus on these three big themes for Cardano. Number one, Bitcoin DeFi on Cardano, where the market in terms of DeFi on Bitcoin is 4 times the size that's currently available on Ethereum and Solana combined. Number two, 24/7 work on scalability, including the launch of Ouroboros Laos, a variant of the Ouroboros consensus protocol, which is focusing on throughput. And I'll dive a little bit more into that here in just a moment. And then the third point here, which is extremely important, is to finally make Cardano a peninsula, not an island. So this means more work on integrations, meaning that we're going to start to hopefully see more bridges, more infrastructure changes, and just support for Cardano and Cardano native assets and Cardano infrastructure outside of the existing ecosystem. And so let's just sort of dissect this and just break this down piece by piece. Number one, he talks about the fact that governance is now moving along quite well. I broke this down in my last video. We've got the official confirmation from SPOs when it comes to the Plowman upgrade confirmed. We've now got 2 out of the 7 ICC parties who are also on board, meaning that if we get, I believe, just 2 more members from the ICC voting yes in favor of that particular upgrade, we're going to see the official confirmation for the Plowman hard fork taking place here any moment. Again, if you're not aware, this unlocks Cardano's treasury and allows for the community to really guide the direction in which we want to see Cardano going into. Now that that's sort of done, as Charles has mentioned, the next focus is number one, Bitcoin DeFi here on Cardano. I've had Adon Yago breaking down what Bitcoin OS is aiming to do, essentially allowing for liquidity or Bitcoin on the existing network to be transferred and represented here on Cardano, and then that being available and supported via all the different platforms that we have, which include lending and borrowing, synthetics. We've got real world assets, but then also even things such as DEXs, right? Being able to bring your Bitcoin into Cardano's ecosystem and then swap that for any Cardano native asset that you want to invest into. So that's a really, really big piece there. And I think it's really important. And in order to also even just sort of dive a little bit deeper into this one here, if you aren't aware, this is an article coming in here from Cointelegraph. This was actually just a couple days ago. Bitcoin TVL now up 2,000%, right? Since their sort of initial launch back in 2024. Now, this includes the fact that there's been big staking developments in the launch of the Bitcoin spot ETF that took place roughly about a year ago now, back in early January of 2024. Diving a little bit deeper in here, They've got quite a bit developed already when it comes to Bitcoin DeFi. They've got asset management tools or different wallets. They've also got different DEXs, including BISC. They've got DeFi infrastructure and dev tooling. And then they've also got Bitcoin payment solutions. And they've even got stable coins now launching on Bitcoin. If we dive even further, taking a look at their TVL here, and I'm going to compare this to Cardano, currently sitting at nearly $7 billion. As you can see here, I mean, this was roughly on the 18th of October of 2024. So about 4 months ago, the TVL was roughly under $1 billion. It has now skyrocketed in just a handful of months here to, again, $7 billion. Scrolling down, we've got the launch of Babylon. We've got the launch of Lombard, a lot of different staking and restaking platforms here. Not seeing too many DEXs or just even lending and borrowing or synthetics, none of that, So there is a massive opportunity here. And it looks like Charles is definitely going to be focusing on making that a possibility moving forward. Now, how does their TVL compare against Cardano? Well, Cardano currently sitting at 500 million. So roughly about a 14 or 15x in order to get to where Bitcoin's DeFi is, again, which is just really, really upticked in just the last couple of months. Taking a look here, we've got lending, DEXs, CDPs or synthetics, algorithmic stable coins, lending DEXs. I mean, we've got a very, very sort of broad perspective here. And I think a lot of these platforms could definitely be launched, or at least variations of them could potentially be launched on Bitcoin there as well. So that's sort of one lens to look at it is we've got protocols here. Could they branch out into the Bitcoin ecosystem? Yes. And vice versa. Can Bitcoin holders potentially get something that they could branch out and bring into Cardano's ecosystem? I think there's a possibility there as well. I also want to take the opportunity to highlight one particular project that I'm definitely looking at when it comes to integrations with Bitcoin, and that's Fluid Tokens. They've already built a DEX there for fungible and non-fungible assets, and they're not going to be bringing their lending and borrowing into the Bitcoin ecosystems as well. And their developers have been really, really focused there on some of the core primitives or some of the core technology that we have within Cardano that allows for manipulation or at least smart contract control through a Bitcoin-based wallet or through a Bitcoin-based address. So let me know what you guys think down below about that particular point. Let's jump back in here. Number 2, 24/7 work on scalability, including Ouroboros Laos. So if you aren't aware of what Ouroboros Laos is, it states that this is basically a new Ouroboros family variant, which is set to substantially increase throughput while achieving at least as good security properties as previous Ouroboros versions. Now, I'll probably have a separate video diving a little bit deeper into this, but again, it mentions the fact that in addition to new designs, right, and the opportunity to incorporate other useful modern features, this also brings along with it a tiered fee transaction system and essentially a way to prioritize transactions taking place on the chain. This is very similar to what we've seen with Ethereum. We're able to pay a little bit higher of a gas fee to prioritize the execution of your particular transaction. As it currently stands on Cardano, it's typically first in, first out. And so we've seen a couple different platforms. For example, Dex Hunter has tried to basically mimic something like this where you could sort of speed up, or depending on which API system that they have in place, you're able to sort of get your transaction executed before others. But with something like Ouroboros Laos, this will be official, right? And this will be done at the consensus level, bringing a lot of flexibility and features here into the ecosystem. Now, it also mentions here that, of course, there's going to be trade-offs, in particular, increased resource usage and increased transaction latency. And so with some of these benefits, keep in mind that there will be some potential drawbacks. So I want to highlight that there. Now, continuing on here with the theme of scalability and increasing throughput, we've got state channels in Hydra, which that particular tournament's actually taking place there. If you've missed it, I'll be out there in Vegas in a couple of days. But there's going to be a massive tournament where we're going to see Doom being run on Hydra, and there's going to be $100,000 up for grabs for the winners of that particular participation or that particular competition. In addition, we've got the IBC bridge, which basically connects Cardano's ecosystem to the Cosmos ecosystem. That's massive. We've also got the optimistic roll-up solution called Midgard being developed by the team led by Phil and Anastasia Labs. And then we've got the data availability layer, also known as the Sky Protocol, which will also be sort of acting as a layer 2. Now, of course, Don't forget the massive one here, which is the partner chain framework, again, where we're going to see Midnight using that technology, and then Quantum Hosky being led by Charles Hoskinson using that as well. So there's quite a bit cooking up here when it comes to scalability. And this is what we need. Again, taking a lot of the heavy lifting off of the core Cardano layer 1, and then allowing for transactions to be executed on those layer 2s and just sort of roll down, or at least captured and recorded on the layer 1 as needed. Jumping back into Charles's post, number 3, making Cardano a peninsula, not an island. So again, we need more listings here. And this is actually going to lead me into the next post here, which is why somebody mentioned, are we going to have Cardano native listings on big exchanges, for example, like Binance or Coinbase? And Charles mentions the primary reason listing Cardano tokens or CNTs is hard is because of a lack of support. Again, that's why we need these integrations. The Cardano Foundation has put zero money into integrations for custodians, wallets, etc. And we're going to have to spend 20 million bucks this particular year to fill it. I'll just go ahead and do it. And again, that's Charles saying that himself. So is that $20 million coming from his back pocket? Is it going to be done through IOG? We'll see. But right now, that is one of the biggest things that we need is support for Cardano native assets. Now, what's interesting is we've seen tokens like Iagon. We've seen tokens like SNEC, Cornucopias, Indigo's token, the Indy token. All those tokens have been listed on things, for example, like Bybit, MEXC. There's a couple of, I think on Bitrue, there's a couple of different exchanges. They're relatively small, but they've got the infrastructure to list Cardano native assets. So it can be done. I just think that we have to pay the right people in order to get that done. Now, if the cost of it is $20 million and we have over $1 billion in the treasury right now, nearly $1.5 billion, that's a drop in the bucket. We need to spend this money yesterday. These are things that we've needed for a really long time to help all the builders here within the ecosystem get the exposure that they need. And to hear that it only costs 20 million, I know I'm saying only, but when we're looking at the grand scheme of things with the Cardano treasury and how much ADA the foundation holds, IOG and Emergo, they should be able to put this together relatively quickly. And they should have put this together relatively quickly in order to make this happen. Because again, I think that this benefits more than just the projects themselves. It benefits every ADA holder to be able to have accessibility to not just ADA, but to all the other assets that are built on top of this core infrastructure that we all believe in. Now, moving over here, I want to highlight one particular comment that came in here from Ada Breeze, who basically talked about the fact that even though Charles had mentioned that there was no infrastructure, that there's something called Cardano Rosetta. So if you haven't heard of this before, this is essentially a system or a framework that allows for quick integrations of different assets from different blockchains straight into what Coinbase has already adopted. And so if you jump over to the official Coinbase website, they've got the introduction to Rosetta, where states build once, and you can integrate your blockchain everywhere. Now, digging even further, and as always, if you appreciate all this information, smash that thumbs up. I really, really do appreciate it. And of course, consider delegating with the official Dapp Central Stake pool. We have the Cardano Foundation, who now has the ownership of a Cardano Rosetta GitHub repository. So there's already code to be integrated into that particular framework. And what's crazy is that this was actually developed by IOG, and then the keys were turned over to the Cardano Foundation. Now, there hasn't been too much development going on here. Looking at the last commits, we've got timelines of 6 months ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 years ago, 8 months ago. I mean, pretty sporadic here, but would love to see this sort of revamped and picked back up. Again, it talks about exactly what this is and how this can be used. And again, this is what Coinbase is also leveraging. So if we're able to get an implementation of this done correctly, hopefully it doesn't take too much additional heavy work to then start seeing token listings for Cardano native assets on platforms such as Coinbase. So let me know what you guys think down below. There's quite a bit that we just sort of discussed there, but Charles breaking down the core focuses here for the year of 2025, Bitcoin and DeFi. We've got integrations. And then let's see there, the last piece was scaling and scaling solutions. So again, let me know what you guys think down below is the most important. I definitely think that Bitcoin and DeFi is a massive one there just because of liquidity and opportunity. But I can definitely say that integrations, CNT listings, as well as interoperability and throughput are also just as important. That'll bring me to the end here for today's video. As always, if you've enjoyed it, please smash that thumbs up. I cannot thank you enough. If you want more, consider subscribing. And last but not least, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave those down below. That said, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.